All right, guys. This session is the Torah portion. And we're doing something a little unique here because we usually do our Bible study on Thursday. But since it was Thanksgiving, we decided to do everything on Saturday. Okay, so we're going to do the Torah portion, and then we're going to follow it up with the half Torah portion. Okay? All right, so Genesis, our Torah portion is called Toldot. What does it mean, guys?
Family history.
Generations.
I'm going to go with generations for 100, Alex, right? And we're coming out of Genesis chapter 25, verse 19 to chapter 28, verse 9. And as we always have like a running theme, I kind of saw choices in here. What did you guys see?
Someone who listened to God or knew God's plan.
Right. Right. Someone that decided to choose God, and someone that decided maybe not to choose God, maybe not to follow God. All right. Now, just a little overview. We're going to talk about Isaac and who's his wife?
Rebecca.
Isaac and Rebecca. We're going to talk about Jacob and Esau, right? Their relationship. We're going to talk about what? Sowing. And what else did we talk about in this session? Birthrights. The most important thing, right? What is it all about, right? Why is it so important? Birthrights. Now, does anybody know what a birthright is? Anybody want to answer that while I turn to where we're supposed to be?
Well, it's typically the firstborn's right to inherit property or a position in the family.
That's an excellent answer. Anyone else want to comment?
It's a will.
It's a will.
It's just a right of you have birthrights because you're born in a particular city, you're born in a particular state or country. You have certain rights just because you were born there. Then you have like patriarchal rights or familial rights. So you have human, birthrights. But there's not just in the family, but also in whatever society or country you're born in. You have birthrights in that too.
Right, right. So we just pretty much typically say right of firstborn is firstborn. How did I phrase it? The birthright is the right of the firstborn. So the firstborn child in that family. In a patriarchal society, it fell to the men. Unless you didn't have a son, it would fall to the woman, as we saw later in the Torah portions. But yeah, it's just the right of the society. I'm trying to open you guys up because I have no idea how God is going to get this out of me. And it feels like so much just to talk about. So I'm going to do what I always do. Rest heavily on the Holy Spirit and start with the first scripture in our section. So we're coming out of a patriarchal society, right? So we got the right of firstborn. And right now, do we have any children? Does Isaac and Rebecca have any children?
Not at chapter.
We do not. Right. So let's start there. Okay. So in Genesis chapter 25, verse 9, it says, right? 19. Thank you, guys. Genesis chapter 25 and 19. So even though last week we talked about Sarah, which was the life and the legacy of Sarah, we kind of talked about their life and their death. But currently, Abraham is not dead. Okay? In this section, he's not dead. And I also want to comment on, I watched the videos and kind of review them and say, was I right? Was I wrong? Bishop made a point of saying that Abraham was the priest. And I was like, well, he wasn't the priest at the time. He wasn't the Melchizedek, but he was the priest. Because in your family, in your patriarchal family, the head of the household is the priest. The head of the household is the one that goes to God or goes to Shem and Eber at this time, right? Those are our reigning priests right now. And as we know, woohoo, Bishop! As we know, so I want to give credit where credit is due. And as we know, when you have a child, you pass on everything to that child, right? So Shem is the priest, and he's teaching his son Eber, right, to take it on. Okay, so those two are alive right now. And I want to just emphasize this a little, coming out of my favorite book, which is the book of, nobody knows
Job.
Job. We're going to go to the book of Job. Where is Job? Job is before Psalms, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. So in the book of Job, because people always read this book and they don't really know how to connect it, but we know that Job's genealogy is in Genesis. He's mentioned there, even though it says he comes from the land of Uz. He's in their genealogy. He's in our line. And they actually can connect him to Esau. We're not going to talk about that right now, but I'm just letting you know he's in here. So it says, Job chapter 1, it says, there was a man, in verse 1, in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. And that man was perfect. I want you guys to remember that, okay? Perfect. In Hebrew, the word is tov, and it means good. It means complete. It means there was no error. It means he was blameless. So I want you guys to remember that, okay?
Amen.
So I'm going to put that over here, right? And it's Hebrew for good and complete and blameless. All right? And what else does it say? And that man was perfect and upright and one that feared God. So we're going to just put some things here coming out of Job chapter 1. He feared God. What else does it say, guys?
That he shunned evil.
He shunned evil, right? All right. So we're just going to think about that as we connect to our Torah portion, right? Because we're talking about choices. We're talking about the life and the things that people do and how what you do kind of determines how you're seen in your in the future, doesn't it?
Right.
Okay. So I just want, let's read a little bit more, okay? And there were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters, because we're kind of wrapping it around to Job was a priest. He was the priest of his family. Okay, his substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 she-asses and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east, right? And his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were done, that Job sent and sanctified them and rose up early. Now, my whole life, I've always read that, and I was like, why is he taking on the sins of the family? Because that was his job. He was the priest of the family. It means he had to make, restitution, pastor. He had to go and pray. You know, if somebody had a problem, you took it to your dad, or if you're married, you took it to your husband. If the husband's dad was alive and they couldn't figure it out, you took it to the dad. And if the dad couldn't figure it out, you took it to Melchizedek, right? Yeah. Okay, so now we're at 5. So he went and he said, I don't know what they did, but I'm going to go ahead and sanctify them. So he got up early in the morning and he offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Even though he mentions the sons, he also is thinking about the daughters. But if they're not married, the father still has responsibility to cover them. But he had to set specific offerings for his sons. Amen. Okay? Now, let's see here. That's all we're going to read, because I just want to emphasize the head of the household is the what? Priest. He is the priest. Okay. Now we're going to go back to Genesis chapter. Okay, I'll fill in the blank. Genesis chapter 25. And we're going to go to 19, right, y'all?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to set that up for you because it all will make sense as we think about these two twins who, you know, when parents have twins, and I feel like I can speak as a twin. I'm a twin. Okay.
Amen.
Now, even though you're twins and you're born at the same time, you know, some people are born different hours, but why torture your mom? Anyway, you're born at the same time. You have different characteristics, right? But it doesn't mean that the parent favors one over the other when you have twins, right? But as you grow, the more time you spend with one, then you'll have more of a relationship or a rapport, right? And that'll kind of play a part as we look at these twins, right? Okay, so it wasn't that he didn't like Esau or Jacob versus Esau. They just had more in common. Okay, now let's get there. 25, right? Okay, let me get over here. 25. 25 verse 19. And these are the generations, which is why we're going to say Toldot means generations, even though it's talking about families. These are the generations, right, that have to make a couple choices that will end up playing a part in our life, that is still playing out. Okay, so you guys hearing me okay on the thing? Okay, so here we go. Oh, let me say one other thing. Let me say one other thing here. We are looking at the Bible. In this one, you remember how we taught about Genesis chapter 1, how it's like prophesying, and we had two creation stories? We are going to also look at this with kind of like layers, right? Okay, so that's what I want y'all to think about. Because here's why. Here's why. We got layers here. We got Jacob and Esau. We got Jacob with the reputation of stealing or supplanting things, right? But at the end of the day, he still ends up getting favor from his father. Why would your father favor you if you were deceptive, deceitful, or a supplanter? So this is why we have to look at this portion in layers, because it's literally two tales that have been put together. Okay? So I want y'all to just be mindful of that as I'm talking. Okay? All right. So we are here. Okay. Genesis chapter 25, verse 19. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac. Abraham is still alive. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as his wife. Now, when Rebekah came to him, she was underage. She was like a maiden, a young virgin. She was not ready to be married. So they didn't go get married immediately. Time had to pass due to her age and due to their religious customs on how, you get married, okay? So I just want to make that point. So it says, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as his wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister to Laban, the Syrian. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him. And Rebekah, his wife, conceived. We're going to stop right there. What happened here?
A priestly prayer.
A priestly prayer. What else? What do y'all see?
She was barren.
First of all, we see these people together for 20 years and there's no baby. We see these people in a society where if you don't produce an heir, you're a curse. You get a get. It's a divorce, right? If you don't produce the heir, you can possibly be divorced if your husband is that type of person. Okay, so we got 20 years with no heir, right? So there's a problem here. And she's like, anybody else want to comment before I tell y'all what's going on in the background?
Oh, but Isaac prayed.
Isaac prayed. What else? Anybody else? So what did I say? You got a problem, take it to your husband. He can't fix it. You take it to the
Priest.
No, you take it to the
The
husband. You take it to the father, who is Abraham. If you can't fix it, you take it to the priest, right? So when they said that they entreated to the Lord these people took a journey to go see the priest because she said, I heard that your mother was barren as well, right? Rebecca. Rebecca says to her husband Isaac, your mother was barren too. Fix it.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you fix it. God is the one that healed my mom to be able to do that. So it's on you.
Right.
She said, well, pray to God for me. And that's why he took it upon himself, because he's the priest. He's taking the prayer that she's requesting. He's taking it out there, and they pray, right? Which means he couldn't fix it.
Right.
20 years this is going on. So they finally go to the priest, and they get this blessing, and then God moves on their behalf. And that's why God heard the prayer, because they took it to the priest.
Right.
This is found in the book of Jasher. And we're going to be making references out of the book of Jasher, right? 26. Because this is the book of Jasher gives us background to what's going on in the past. Chapter 26 to 29, I think. And again, Jasher, Google Jasher PDF free. Okay, if you want to get the book. Okay, now, so this is referenced in the book. The background is they had to go to the priest to get this blessing, and God intervened on their behalf because he, of course, has to show himself powerful in every situation. Now, we are down at the children struggled, so it worked. Prayer works, right?
Amen.
So they struggled, and she became pregnant. Now, the children struggled together inside her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. Meaning what?
What's
Why
going on
is
in
this
my belly?
going on?
Right, but what does that mean to inquire of the Lord at this time?
To find out.
It means we're going back up to the priest. Because now I'm
Find
pregnant,
Why is
but I'm having so much trouble. And she's like, why is this going on? And she's like, you know, no one's telling me that this happens when you get pregnant, right? So she went back to the priest and asked them what's going on with my belly. And so they prophesied to her, right, after they went and threw some offerings up to Father, y'all, you know, threw them up to God, right? And came back with an answer after they had been into the presence of God. And God says to them, who's he talking to? Who is God talking to on behalf of Rebecca?
He's talking to the priest.
God is talking to the priest. Who's the priest at the time? Who's Melchizedek is what I'm saying. Shem and Eber. Dad and son. Okay? And they came back to her with an answer. And they said, 2 nations are in your womb. Right? 2 people on the surface level are in there. But there are 2 nations that are coming out of you. And 2 manner of people means 2 people that have a choice. Should I follow God? Should I not follow God? Should I honor the right of firstborn or not? Right? And they're going to come out of your bowels, right? And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Just the fact that I know that she went with her husband to see the priest means Isaac knew. I'm just going to say that. Okay? What was told, or what was prophesied over the family. So people want to say, oh, well, he didn't know. She kept that a secret for 20 years. What? I don't think so. So anyway, this is the prophecy that was told. Now, let's think about this, because we know who's going to come. Jacob and Esau. 2 nations, but really 4 nations came out of there. Okay, and we'll talk about that later. Because we got Israel. We got Jacob, right? We got Esau. But out of Esau, he married who?
Judah.
He married the Hittites. And then he married who?
He married.
He married Ishmael's line.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a whole bunch of people. That's Egyptians. That is, where are my notes at? That's Egyptians. And that's, I wrote it down somewhere. Yeah, it's right in my face. Arabians, Palestinians, and Romans. Did you guys know that? So there's going to be there's a problem right now because of this lineage that we're going to kind of dig out. Okay? All right. So back to it. two nations, right? One's going to be stronger over the other. It says specifically the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. But that's two different things going right there. Definitely know that the firstborn is going to be serving the secondborn. But then we have this other thing of one nation is going to be stronger than the other nation. And then don't just lump that on Esau and Jacob. They're talking about nations. Okay? Now, so we got a baby. We got two babies, right? Because you get a double portion with God. All that she went through. So you got two nations.
Right.
We got we said Egyptians. We said Romans, and we said what was the other one, guys?
Palestine.
Yeah, Palestine. Why am I putting Egyptians on here twice? Okay, Egyptians, Palestinians, and Romans. Palestinians and Romans. And then I'm just gonna, just so everyone remembers, there's hope here. We got Israel. So everyone's like, oh, all is lost. All right. So back to it. Anybody got any questions? Any comments? Now remember, I didn't give y'all a chance. Questions? Oh, okay. So we have two nations. Now remember, I said we're in layers because there's somebody who's gonna dump this birth generations on us, right? We got one creation story going, and then all of a sudden we're going to jump into Isaac's story, okay? So in layers, we're just kind of giving you an overview of what's going to happen. Now, so we got it, 24, chapter 25, Genesis chapter 25, verse 24. And when her days were to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bore him. They started out saying they were together. They got married at 40. Now he's 20 years later when this birth actually came, right? Right. Okay, so the boys grew. Now pay attention to these because it's going to wrap right around to that Hebrew word of tov, which means good, which means complete, blameless. It means someone that fears God, and it means someone that shuns evil. Let's look at these characteristics, right? We're at verse 27. It says, and the boys grew, right? Not to the age of 10. It's like an overview. The boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. Stop right there. So Esau was what?
A wild man.
He was a wild man, right? Let's do our little chart. Esau and Jacob. Now talk to me, y'all. What did it say about Esau?
He was hairy.
Right.
He was a hunter. He knew how to hunt very well.
He was a hunter. Is that what y'all said? He was a hunter?
He said he was a cunning.
He said he was a hunter.
I'm asking you a question. That's what y'all said?
Yes.
Okay. Who else was a hunter that we know about so far?
Ishmael.
No, you got it.
Oh, Nimrod?
Nimrod. Let's
Yeah, it was a mighty hunter before
He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Now, Nimrod started out, and that is referenced in Genesis chapter 10, verse 6 to 10. Right, guys? So, we got a hunter. In the Hebrew word, it actually means trapper. Someone that traps animals and people. Right? And that's what they're saying about Esau. So he's a hunter. What else? What else did they say?
He was a man of the
Man
field.
of the field means
He wasn't in the earth.
his dad, what did it say to him when he was like, it's time to get this blessing? He said, go get your bows and your arrows. So he was a bowman.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to think about that. as we move forward, he did bows and arrows. So he was like Nimrod. So we're just going to kind of put that down because we're liking him to Nimrod and we're liking Jacob to Job, right? Who was perfect, who was complete, who was blameless, right? Now, it says he was a plain man dwelling in tents. Let's talk about the book of Jasher, chapter 26 to 29. That's someone that studies, someone that dwells in tents. What do we know are tents in Hebrew culture? People that do prayer shawls, that stay in prayer, that are learning about the priesthood. You have a comment? Yeah, you have a comment?
I think that it was too, he studied his culture, he was, you know, things like that. I think he was more of a refined type of person that was kind of like towards guests coming to town and
Yeah, he was hospitable.
different things like that because he spent his time at, you know, dwelling in tents and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but he dwelled in tents, right?
He was more home, you know, statesman, yeah, you know,
What was he studying?
more aristocratic, so to
The
speak.
Torah.
He was studying the Torah, right? Can y'all see this?
Yes.
He was studying
No, we
the
can't.
Torah.
But it's okay, we got it.
We all right. It's fine.
Oh, he was in tents. He was learning how to be a priest. Because who was the priest in their house?
Right.
Dad.
His dad.
His dad.
Yeah.
So he was not quiet
Right.
in the sense of
Not doing
this timid person, right? Because it said Jacob wrestled with an angel. And we talked last week that Michael was a character, right?
wow.
Can y'all see him in here?
No.
Yeah. So he was tough. He wasn't quiet and meek. He was a man of peace, just like his father, right? No, it's going out. I need a battery. Can you give me a mic? Yeah. So anyway, he was a man of peace. He was someone that was always studying the Word of God, right? He actually honored the right of firstborn, right? So let's move on into our story. I just wanted to see if y'all could see that, but I wanted you to make the connection to Nimrod. Yeah, I wanted you to make the connection to Nimrod. So we're going to read a little bit more because remember I said, right, that, what did I say? That it's an overview, right? It's an overview. So now, at this time, it says, looking at the characteristics, it says Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. What do y'all think about that scripture, though?
What?
That the dad loved him because he liked meat. Does anybody think of anything? Vikings?
Well, the thing I think about is what you originally said, which took my mind to a greater level of understanding, you know, the way Jacob was. He was hanging around his mom, you know, what does it say?
But he wasn't hanging around his mom. I'm going to make that clear, which is why I said we're looking at the book of Jasher. I'm going to tell you.
Well, I don't mean hanging around his mom, but I'm just saying, you know, maybe it was because he spent more time in the tents, in the house and stuff.
They're making a distinction.
Or did he have his own tent?
No, because he wasn't married yet.
Okay.
I think he ate from what he was able to catch and kill, like he was a good productive person in his father's eyes.
Yeah, because the thing that Isaac liked about Esau was he wasn't spiritual. We know that. But he was able to be successful with what he had, with what he could use. He used his strength. He used his he used his strength. He used his weapons, right? And he was able to be successful. And that was his firstborn son. Now, when they talk about Jacob hanging out with Rebekah, it's just saying she was his favorite, probably because he was most like his father, who was the priest at the time. That's the reference we want to look at, because in the book of Jasher, where we have a little background, right? at this age, because it says the boys grew, they're about 18 years old, and they're about to be sent to Shem and Eber to learn how to be priests. But Esau refused. He wanted to just stay in the fields, right? And he ended up being closer to his father, which is why I said it's not so much that he liked Jacob better than Esau. They spent more time together because
that makes sense.
Jacob was not in the house, right? Okay, so now there's something that's going to happen right here, and I'm going to explain it. It says in Jacob, I'm at verse 29. Jacob saw pottage, is cooked stew, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. Got to do a little background out of the book of Joshua, because it's just a bunch of scriptures that they're throwing at us, and we don't understand what's happening in the bigger scheme of things, right? Yes. So, my question to God was, why was he faint when he's always in the field? You got endurance. This is what you do every day, right? Now, background. So we talked about Nimrod, and we talked about who's Nimrod's dad a couple weeks ago is Cush. And who's Cush's dad? Ham, right? And that's why I gave you that scripture reference, but we didn't look at it. But just remember, I'm going to walk this through. He was jealous of that line. They were still alive. He was jealous of that line, and so they were in the field one day, and they went to battle each other, right? For whatever reason, it resulted in murder. So Esau kills Nimrod.
What?
Yeah. Esau kills Nimrod, and he steals his priestly garment, the priestly garment that was from Adam, right? And it's in the Midrash. It's in these books. Also in the book of Joshua, he stole the priestly garment, and that's how he became a mighty hunter before the Lord. At one point, he was with the Lord, but then he got that garment, and it changed his mind because he started to get favor and power. He turned internal and stopped looking to God and became an idol worshiper. Abraham's father was there in the midst of it, and he was the one building idols, so God had to come in and say, Abraham, get out of that country, right? And come follow me. So that is still going on, right? So that's what's happening in the background. So he's running for his life, which is why he's tired, because he just killed the king at that time, who was the king of Babylon, right? So now, at that point, you're like, I'm about to be alive for about 30 seconds, right? Because I just killed a great king. So that's why he was exhausted. Okay, so he's cooking pottage, and this pottage is actually cooked during funeral times, which means someone's just died. Not Nimrod. No one cares. No, I'm just kidding. Abraham just passed away. So that's a food, the lentil, the salt pottage, is a round bean, right? Because it's reminiscent in the Hebrew culture of the circle of life, right? And that's what they eat, that type of stew during passing, right? Which kind of lets us kind of jump a little bit ahead. Dad, if you're about to die, how can you eat this big meal I'm about to go hunt down for you? Think about that later, okay? So during the time of passing, right, they eat this meal. So that's what Jacob was doing. He was honoring his grandfather by making that meal and helping everyone in the house, because they had visitors from all over the world, because Abraham was famed, and I'll say all over the country, but he was famed for his kindness, for his character, and for everyone that he had interacted with in his life. So it was a lot of people coming down to see him off. Okay, so he's cooking that food, right? And he's kind of discerning, like, what's going on with you, you know? And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray you, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. And then Dom in Hebrew means red. So Adam came from the earth. He's red and hairy, right? So they just kind of get that. Yeah, they get that word there. And Jacob said, sell me this day your birthright, right? Now the birthright entails You're the head of the house. You're the next head of the household. You're the next priest. You're in power. You have the responsibility to make sure everything continues on in our line. And we know he didn't want that. He had been training. So he wasn't just outright saying, give me your birthright. He's like, I like being the priest.
Right.
I learned a lot from Shem and Eber. I want to do this for my life, right? So that's what he was asking. He knew exactly what he was requesting, right?
Right.
And he had the right to do it, as we see in Psalms 135, verse 4. God picked Jacob before they were born.
Right.
And who, can we recall, ever was the actual firstborn that got the title? Abraham was second, right?
Right.
Abraham wasn't the firstborn, but God chose him, right? Joseph had kids. Who got the double portion? He was like, Dad, switch them hands around. But you have to think about how God works. He didn't come to the firstborn child, even though he values the firstborn, the right of the firstborn.
Right.
But it's, for some reason in our history, it's always someone else besides the firstborn that picks it up, right? So, all right. So I just want to say he wasn't going, just let me just take everything I can. Because we know he was good. We know he was complete. We know he was blameless. He was a good man. So Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die. In the Hebrew context, this is talking about murder. That's how we can kind of prove text or prove it out that he had come from murdering someone. Because it's like, you're about to die, right? But you're the strong guy in our family, right? So anyway.
So he's thinking he's about to be killed.
Right. He's talking about, he's hinting to the fact of, I've just murdered someone. I don't care anyway.
Yeah.
It ends right now.
They coming to get me. Yeah.
Right. So now we're at third. Huh? Isaac, right? Thank you, Minister Shane. Isaac was the second born, right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when Esau said at 32, behold, I'm at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me now, right? And Jacob said, swear to me. Y'all know Jacob, y'all know Isaac, y'all know Abraham were people that when they're asking for something,
Right.
I want it in writing.
Right.
He put it in writing.
Right.
He started writing it, all the things, and he got that birthright.
Right.
And he did it fairly. He said, I can barter this stew, right? What do you got? Give me your birthright. So it was fair. And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils. Those are the beans. And he did eat and drink and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Thus Esau didn't value his birthright. It's not that he despised it in the sense of how if you despise someone, you don't like them, you don't treat them well. He didn't value it. And that's what God wants us to think about. When he's giving us these treasures, how do you value what I'm giving you? How do you see it, right? Okay.
He's about to die, so it probably didn't matter.
Right, right. But we just kind of, that's awesome. We want to think about the life and the character of these people because his reputation, Jacob, people only think of him as a deceiver. When the Bible says he was a plain man dwelling in tents. He was someone that went to the priesthood when his father sent him to go. So how in the world did he get this reputation as a deceiver? Because they put these scriptures in layers, right? One is telling one story, and then on the real truth underneath it, there's truth. You gave your birthright away. You didn't value it, which is why when he said it, you've taken this thing from me twice. His dad didn't say anything about it. Not because he didn't know, but because he's like, you didn't value it. You know? Okay. Even though I still love you, Esau. We cool, right? Now,
Bring me some of that venison.
right. So now that was kind of like an overview of what has going to happen. Because we're going to jump down into chapter 26, right? And that's all of a sudden, that's exactly why, Elder, I was like, why are we talking about Jacob, Esau, Isaac, and Rebekah, and then going back in time? So that's how I read it. I'm like, this isn't connecting because it's not supposed to connect. You're supposed to look and say, what's happening around me? Why is this going on? Okay, so now there was a famine in the land in chapter 26, right?
Right.
And this was a different famine. They're making this distinction. It says, beside the first famine. So Egypt consistently is in famine. Let's just take that away, right? The days of Abraham, and it said in the first famine was, and it's different from the famine that was in the time of Abraham. And they're just kind of reminding us, they're trying to hint to it because it's not in our Bible. Because then we're thinking that Abraham died 2 chapters ago, but he just died. So everybody is kind of in mourning at this time. Okay, so and Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, to Gerar. So did his father Abraham. Now Abimelech is a title. Okay, it's not the same person, even though these people are living a very long time. It's not the same person. So let's just put king. That's
So it's similar to like Pharaoh.
yeah.
Similar to like Melchizedek.
Yeah, exactly. So we got King Abimelech, and he passed it on to his son. Abimelech. Yeah, he passed it on to his son. So it's not the same person that was looking at Sarah. Okay. And the Lord appeared to him. Hold the phone, right? He's the priest. That's why he's coming to him now. Do y'all realize this? Abraham's just died. So now God is going to start showing up in red to the next son, right? Okay, and now I just want to say this as well. When Rebecca went to, gotta make sure I'm saying it because it's Rebecca, as Rachel was Leah. Oh my God. But when Rebecca went to Isaac, she was like, go pray for me, right? And he was like, I'm already walking on the promise that God was going to increase our seed, which is why he said, you have to, do this, get this prayer through. You have to tell God what you want. Don't just say, go to my God. You have to do this. Okay, anyway. He's walking on the promise of Abraham. Now, verse 2 of chapter 26 of Genesis says, God showing up. He's like, don't go to Egypt because I put the promise in the land over here. But if you go over there, you're going to mess something up, right? So he said, don't go to Egypt. Dwell in the land which I tell you to go to. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and to your seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. Right? And he's continuing on. He says, and I will make your seed. Now remember, we're going to also talk about sowing. I will tell your seed. I will make your seed multiply, right, as the stars of heaven. And I will give to you all these countries and your seed. Why do they keep underlining seed? Right? That's something you should ask yourself. Shall all the nations, and through your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because, why, y'all?
Abraham obeyed.
Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my law. Meaning, cause and effect.
He honored God.
If you don't listen to me, is what God is saying, you won't be as great as your father Abraham. If you listen to me, then your seed will be multiplied as the stars of heaven, right? It's conditional.
Yes.
And the first test was,
Sacrifice.
don't go to Egypt.
Don't go to
Right, because we got a new man, got a new sheriff in town. He's a man of peace. His dad was a king of kindness, right? He's a man of peace. Okay. Now, so it says Isaac dwelt in Gerar, which means he didn't go to Egypt.
Right.
So, let me look here. Make sure. Yeah. Okay, Isaac's on this page. So we got the title, right? All right, we're on track. Now, he told Rebecca to go to God for herself, right? Means what? we talked about Sarah. We know we have to get a little relationship with God in order for that divine blessing to be upon you. So that means she was in his presence too, which is why she and her son Esau got along so well, because they were in God's presence. I'm sorry, Jacob and Rebecca got along so well because they were in God's presence. They knew how to function, right? Okay, so we're at verse 7. We're going to start talking about sowing. And Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And the men of the place asked him of his wife. And he said, she is my sister. For he feared to say, she is my wife. Lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look at. And it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out at a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah, his wife. Background. Back up, right?
It's true.
In the book of Jasher, first of all, why is the king hanging out, just walking around? God had given Isaac favor in the sight of Abimelech, which is why they were in close relationship, which is why he was happy to be around the house. He was coming to visit. And he saw them together, and he's like, you guys are not acting like brother and sister. Okay? So he said, why did you do this thing? You could have caused, what do you say? Caused a curse or caused guilt to come upon us, you know, because why would he care? God had put favor on Isaac, and it was so strong that it would have caused a really big scene, or what? Give me a word, somebody. A rift that could be felt throughout the earth. But I mean, that's what you think about. It's like, well, what do you care? You're the king of this territory. Because God had favored him so much. It was important that they continue to prosper under God. Because where Isaac was, he was prospering.
He was prospering.
Right? Okay, now, we're going to look at Isaac's story about the wells, right? In the light of sowing. Okay, I'm over time. I'm going to try to... Huh? Oh, okay, we're just going to dwell in the presence of God. What'd you say, Minister Joe? Abraham did what? With the father? Exactly. He did. Abraham told Sarah, anytime we go out, tell him you're my sister. And so Isaac did the same thing. Abraham was friends with Abimelech, and so Isaac was also friends with his son. So they had that relationship. Anybody have any comments? Questions? Oh, hey, awesome. All right, we're going to look at this in the context of sowing, though, with Isaac and his scripture. Did you have another question related to that comment, though?
No.
You're just making the comment? Oh, yeah. Okay. I feel like I see a hand raised. Okay, now. And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he made an edict, don't touch this lady. The fact that he did that means that Rebecca had the divine protection just like her mother-in-law, right? Because, as I said, we got to back up a little bit and recognize that even though we know about Isaac and Esau, they may not be here yet. So there's a potential for that seed to have been corrupted if someone had gotten in that path, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So, yeah, it makes sense. So that's why we wanted to protect that seed. That's why we needed to ensure that she was walking with God as well. Now, we are at sowing. Y'all ready for this? This is cool to me. So, this is Isaac's test, one of his tests, right? Okay. And how he became this renowned man of peace. So, because God is watching. Right. And then when God is watching and you're doing things, if you do it in the right spirit, if you do it with the right mind frame, mindset, he will bless it. Yes, he will. And not only will he bless it, as we know from sowing seed, right, it will produce, it will multiply, and it should take care of you for the rest of your life. If it is the right seed, right? You got to have good seed going in the ground, right?
Amen.
Okay, now,
Amen.
it says, then Isaac sowed in that land. And I am having a flash moment here. Okay. Isaac sowed in that land. He sowed in that land. He sowed in the land that God told him to settle in, right? And received in the same year 100-fold.
Amen.
And the Lord blessed him.
Amen.
That scripture is talking about every incident that happened from here. After verse 13, we understand his process of sowing, right? That's what God is showing. Not just talking about wells. He's not just talking about different things. He's not just talking about a prosperity message. He's talking about the life of Isaac was a good life. It was a life that he could bless because he was constantly producing good seed. But why do we walk away with the number 100?
100 is wisdom.
Yeah, it is. Where are you referencing, Pastor? 100 is wisdom?
Just last year.
Oh, okay, thank you. Give me a point of reference. 100 is wisdom, but we're talking about sowing. We're talking about crops. We're referencing Mark chapter,
4.
and what does it say?
Sower sows the word.
Right?
Oh, some reap
First come up.
60, 30, and 100-fold.
Right.
30, 60, and
Why is he concerned with the amount?
Who asked?
Because of the promise.
Because of the promise.
Well, it says right here, right? When you think about his life, right? And he sold in peace. Because he sold in peace, it doesn't say 30, 60, 100. It says he did it at 100. It was no partial. There was no partialities in it. It was always 100 when in his sowing or his reaping or sowing and reaping, because he was 100% in it, and he did it by God's way of doing things.
Did he, Apostle?
He did.
I'm with you. He did it according to the way God showed him, right?
Right.
So can we say he was counting?
Counting?
Counting. He came with a specific number. It's not so much about the 100.
He was always
It's
in
the
line.
fact that it's a specific amount that he's recognizing has come back.
Well, yeah.
Well, one moment, Pastor.
Okay.
I'm just saying he was always in line with God. Promise.
Yeah.
Can,
Yeah.
It's like this. If I sow for a specific thing, right, I always get it. I don't get 30% of what I asked for, or I don't get 60% of what I asked for. I always get everything I asked for because I do it in his will.
Right, but the thing we're looking at too, everybody is correct. There are no wrong answers here. God says people go 30, 60, and 100. But Isaac sold 100. Right? So they want us to see it wasn't out of his strength that he was reaping. Right?
Right.
It was God. But it's like, well, I'm sowing this, whatever. I'm sowing to get this specific thing, and I'm asking God for it. But if it's not producing that 100-fold, means it's not that it's not good, but it's not supernaturally blessed. The only way you can get 100-fold to be complete, right, is if you're really, truly walking with God. Which is why people, you have to understand the process of sowing, right? So you first the blade, then the
ear,
then the,
full
corn,
corn,
then,
The ear.
The harvest.
right. So he had to get to the point where walking with God, because they said, oh, the first year, this happened in a year. In what world did anything with God happen in a year? Right? It's not talking about that year. It's wanting us to see two things. God supernaturally blessed this man to continue to increase. And he was also someone that was counting, because when you get a return, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to give 10%. If this man, as we know, was the priest, he knew 3 times a year he was expected to be somewhere. He was supposed to count, so he knew how much to give, right? You can't just be like, I made a little bit, so I'm going to give him a little bit. He had to go to God with specific amounts. So that is what that one little scripture is saying, right?
Excuse me.
Does that make sense?
Amen.
Okay, so we got to get to the supernatural blessings with God. So that scripture to me is highlighting what's going to happen in the life of him. Now think about it. Let's just think. God is going to supernaturally bless something. He is looking at more than what you're putting in the ground. He's thinking about your heart. He's thinking about the way you treat people. He's thinking about, your character. He's thinking about everything. You don't get a supernatural blessing with God, right? If you're not right, if you're raggedy. You said it. She said it, not me.
The elder said
Now,
it.
we already know he's listening to God, right? Because God said, go here, right? He didn't go there. He went where God said go. So we know he's listening. Now, okay, so we're going to dig through these wells. It said, and the man waxed great. And when you're doing great, people don't like that.
You better say
It doesn't matter, but it's the truth. Because what did God say? I'll make your name great, right? I'll make them envy you. I'll make them want to know what it is that you're doing. That way his message can continue to go forth, right? So he waxed great and went forward and grew until he became very great.
very great.
So it didn't happen in a year.
Right.
Right? It's just letting us know in the time of those years, he was giving his due fruit. Right? So he became very great. For he had possession. This is talking about after all this, that life that he walked, this is the result of it. This is how we know he had the full corn and the harvest had really come. Not that he just threw the sickle, right? Because he could have stopped at well number 3, but he kept going with these wells, right? Okay, so he had possession of flocks and possession of herds and great store of servants. And the Philistines envied him, right? For all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham, his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. Now, how dumb do you have to be you're in the desert, you need water,
Right.
and you get this great idea to throw dirt in it,
You're right.
okay?
You in the desert.
It's crazy. But they did that because they were envious.
Yeah.
They didn't want him to succeed, but he was walking in God because my Bible says he received 100-fold. So it didn't matter what they did. Now, we're at 16, and Abimelech said to Isaac, just like the Egyptians said to the children of Israel, right? Just like Herod said, do y'all remember that?
Yeah.
King Herod said to the people, I don't like these Jewish people, right? Even though he was half Jewish. Where does he come back from? He comes from Esau.
Esau's line.
He's talking about
I'm talking about. Yeah. King Herod. You remember the killer of the Jews?
Yeah.
He's in the line of Esau. And we have this contention between the nation of Israel and everyone else. Right? And he's a part of that. Okay, now, back to it. Back to the wells. Now, people envy you. They want to destroy you.
Yep.
So just like those famed people in our history, they wanted to get rid of everybody. And it says, Abimelech said to Isaac, get out of here. For you are much mightier than we. You're embarrassing me. Your kingdom is growing and I'm the king, right? And Isaac departed there. Isaac didn't pitch a fit.
Right.
He didn't go to war.
Okay.
Right? He didn't cry. Right? This is someone that has got like a stillness and a strength of spirit and character. Right? Because he was the priest. He had to act a certain way in the presence of God. In order for this to work out how he said, he conditionally was responsible. It said in verse 5 of 26, because your father obeyed. Now, if he had pitched a fit, he may not have gotten that 100-fold blessing, right? So now, back to 16, right? He says, get out of here. Verse 17, and Isaac departed there and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. And Isaac dug, dig, pig, dig. And Isaac dug again the wells of water, which they had dug in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham, and he called their names after the names by which his father had called them. So he named them exactly what his father did. He's walking exactly in the footsteps of his dad, so much to the point that even the things he's naming are going to be like this moratorium around what God had done for his father, right? And Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of springing water.
Amen.
So the first well, right? And the herdsmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, the water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esek, because they strove with him. But Isaac did what?
Digged another well.
Means he didn't quarrel. That's a trait that we have to think about. He doesn't fight over things when he can just go somewhere else, right? Not that he's like someone that doesn't like confrontation, but that's not when God says, I'm going to go before you and I'm going to make this situation be what it's supposed to be, right? You don't have to fight, right? All right, so that first one is he didn't quarrel well. And they dug another well. First the blade, right? They're going to dig another well and strove for that also. And he called the name of it Sitnah. Now, Sitnah comes from the root word in Hebrew, the same root word as Hasatan, which is what? The accuser of the brethren. So it's named. So that's why they said, because they dug the well and they strove there, meaning they tried to accuse him. That's ours, right? They tried to bring something against him. So he left that place. And that one is like his test. He did not quarrel at the first well, and he did not accuse his brethren of taking away his well. Now, he went up. Okay. So, and then he removed himself at verse 22 from there and dug another well, and for that they strove not. Right? Because, you know, when you're in the process of sowing, stuff has to get better. You're not always going to be starting from ground zero, right? So he's at the point where he's probably gotten a blade, right? First blade in the ear, right? Because it says that God made room for them, right? And the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up from there to Beersheba. Now, got this well is dug. It's where God has blessed them, right? And then God is showing up, because all the while he's walking with you, he's going to show up. Now, and the Lord appeared to him, because he's watching the character of Isaac, right? That's what he's doing. He's watching him in the background. He's seeing everything that's going on. But it's when something starts to happen, that's when God comes in, because that's when his spirit, you're connected. Got something, Apostle?
I do have something. It's this particular point that you're making here, just about being consistent with people. They are supposed to be someone, or they're doing whatever, trying to get with God, and then they have something happen, you know, some negative thing happen, and then they back up, or they lose out on not understanding who God is, so they stop doing whatever they were doing, whether it was reading or whatever the case may be. They get distracted, and it just kind of proves his word, you know, if you just look at what's really happening here. He had some negativity happening there, but he didn't even deal with that. He just kept moving towards, you know, the promise, because in his mind, he knew that he had the promise of God. So he just had to keep on going towards the promise. That's profound.
Yeah, that's amazing. Anyone else have a comment?
You know? Yeah, that's it. But that's profound.
All right.
Way there.
Okay, so God has blessed them. He says he went up from there to Beersheba. And the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham, your father. It was like, I know who you are. Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you and multiply your seed for my servant Abraham's sake. Means God comes, he gives you encouragement when you're at the point where you're like, oh my gosh. God will show up and remind you of the promise.
Amen.
Now, and he's built an altar there, and he called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants dug a well. Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahuzah, one of his friends, and Phicol, the chief captain of his army. And Isaac said to them, what are you guys doing here? You told me to go away. But he says, you are doing so well. He's really coming under the guise of, you know, trying to make amends, because they know they had done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if he wouldn't have brought his captain of his army, if there wasn't a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Isaac said to them, wherefore come you to me, seeing you hate me and have sent me away from you? And they said, we saw certainly that the Lord was with you, and we said, let there be now an oath between us, even between us and you, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, and because we haven't touched you, and we have, as we have done to you, but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord. And he made a feast, and they did eat and drink, and they rose up betimes in the morning and swore one to another, and Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. So he's a man of peace.
Amen.
Now, that's well number 4 where all of this happened. Now, he's got to do one more well, right? And this well is the God will keep you well. This is the well that you don't ever have to be fighting and striving and doing nothing, because you've got your harvest. And again, I've said the harvest is supposed to keep you forever.
Amen.
Now, this one says, it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which they had dug, and said to him, we found water. And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. And Esau was 40 years old when he took a wife. Okay, so stop right there. And it's all this happened to show us that Isaac sowed, he reaped 100-fold.
Amen.
Okay? Now, Esau was 40 years old, and he took a wife, Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Bathsheba, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, which were a grief to both parents, not just Rebecca. Right? So I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to pause the tape, right? Take a break. Someone kick the air on. I'm sweating up here.
Amen.
You stopped at the well of Sheba.
Okay, it's going. The well of Sheba. Okay, so we were at chapter 26, verse 35, right?
Yeah.
34 and 35. I just wanted people to see that, you know, Esau was 40 years old and he's getting married, right? To 2 women of the Hittite tribe. And they were a grief to both parents. So I don't want anyone to think that he was perfect in every way in Isaac's sight. Esau chose wrong. He made a bad choice with the wives, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, now Jacob in the book of Jasher, Jacob studied under Shem and Eber for 32 years.
What?
That's what it says.
Okay.
And he stayed under there. So like there's a scene in the book between Jacob and Esau where he was like getting mad. Anytime they would get into a situation, he would flee. But it's not in our Bible. He would go there. He would go to the priests and just remain there. Okay, so anyway, we're at verse 27. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, why am I laughing? Isaac was old. He's like, I'm about to die. But we know Isaac lived for a very long time after this point.
Okay.
So, why was he making this scene? Our Bible, they just gave it to us. By the Holy Spirit, we're able to decipher it all. He wasn't about to die in this moment.
Right.
So he says,
It's kind of like when your family get older, you know.
yeah, he was really, exactly, Pastor. He wasn't talking about his physical death.
Right.
He was talking about, I need to pass on the priesthood to somebody, right? He's dim. His eyes are dim. He's not seeing spiritually. He's not seeing naturally either. And not trying to be mean, I'm just saying, we look at our Bible in layers and levels. So he wasn't talking about, you know, my time is coming, son, because guess what? When you get older, your appetite changes. That right there lets us know he wasn't to the point of death, to the point where he couldn't process food. He was eating venison and steaks and anything Esau was going to get. He was a healthy man. But he was like, I got to make sure that this, you know, this blessing passes correctly. That's what this is talking about. So it says, and it came to pass that when Isaac was old, I will laugh at that every time I see it now, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see. He called Esau his eldest son, rightfully so, because the firstborn is supposed to take on the family role, the head of the family, and said to him, my son. And he said to him, behold, here am I. And he said, behold, now I am old. I know not the day of my death. But for some reason we read that like, oh, Isaac's about to die.
Right.
Now therefore take, I pray you, your weapons, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and take me some venison. Now, I'm screaming because Esau was a bowman. He had weapons, and there's a reference in Revelation chapter 6 that is testifying to the children of Esau and how they would become a nation that would try to go above, you know, their brethren, right, and mask themselves as the right religion. Y'all want to go there? Let's go there. Revelation chapter 6. At the time this Bible was written, there was no Revelation chapter 6.
Right.
So if you read that reference of him being a bowman, you would automatically know when Revelations was finally written who it was talking about. Right? That was the hope. Talking about seals, guys. It says, Revelation chapter 6, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow. That's talking about Esau's children. And a crown was given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. That's all I'm going to show you right there. If you were in the time and they mentioned, and you're reading your scriptures and learning about the children of Esau, any reference that you had to connect the dots, it would trigger that, oh, they're talking about Esau and the nation of Edom, and also the book of Obadiah is prophesying to the destruction of Edom, Esau's children, who are the Egyptians, the Palestinians, the Muslims, all the people that are trying to make the religion counter to what God's original intent and purpose was. Because they're walking around with this story, as we're going to see. Even though we see Esau and Jacob make amends, they never made amends with the story and the history of what happened to his people, which is why they're constantly in conflict to this day. Okay? So, where we at? Okay, so he's got his bowl. He's like, go get me some food and make me savory meat such as I love and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. Now, he wasn't talking about the right of, you know, how at the end of their death they would prophesy things over their sons. He was just saying, about to give you the mantle, so to speak. And Rebekah heard it when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. And Rebekah spoke to Jacob, her son, saying, behold, I heard your father speak to Esau, your brother, saying, bring me venison. And she's just recounting what he said so that he can be blessed before his death. Means there's something very important that's about to occur. And she's remembering the prophecy that she received when they were born, that everything is supposed to go to the second child that came. So, now, therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 kid goats, and I will make them savory meat for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father, that he may eat, and that he may bless you before his death. Now, what happens at this point? Like, we see what's happening. They're about to get this food together. But what is Jacob's response?
He doesn't want to do it.
Why not?
That's a good question, teacher.
Mm-hmm. Why doesn't he
Because
want
his reputation, he's already having to contend with this reputation about himself, right?
Yeah, but he's not
well equipped to do it.
he's not like, well, I'm talking about the reputation that I was talking about earlier is the reputation of what we have been taught, is that he's a deceiver, that he's a supplanter. But he wasn't. And we know that because we see he was studying for 32 years in the priesthood, and we know that he was a good, blameless man. And we recognize he shunned evil, right? Now, you said he wasn't equipped. What do you mean?
His brother was the burly, manly type. He wasn't.
Yeah.
So they're telling him to go out there in the field and do field work, and he's like, I don't know.
Well,
Rebecca's gonna cook the whole
Well, what they're saying is, that's a good point, because he's not the same physique. So it's like, first of all, you're making me walk in a lie, which he didn't want to do. He knew the ramifications. He shuns evil, right? And he's not weak. He's not this weak, feeble man. So we don't want to get that thought either, because, like I told you, he wrestled with angels. He was defender of his tribe. They make it like he's this coward, but it's just the way the book was written and translated. Because they're talking about he's a plain man. What does that mean? That he dwelt in tents, huh? But if you look at different contexts, different texts, it's talking about he was a studied man. He was a man that if he could not be confrontational, then of course he wouldn't, because that's not God's way. That's not how his father was, is what he's saying. Not that he can't wrestle a goat down. It was the fact that we're going to be walking in a lie. You're going to turn me into a deceiver, you know, to my father. And he didn't want to mess up how he looked in his father's eyes, which lets us know that he wasn't deceptive, that he honored and valued what it meant for you to, how you were viewed in your father's eye, and the title, right? Because the whole point, his whole story is about, I see the importance of this, let me get it, right? Okay, now, so she's going to cook the food, and she says, Jacob said to his mom, behold, Esau, my brother, is hairy and a smooth man, and I'm a smooth man. My father perhaps will feel me, and I shall seem to him a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me and not a blessing because he understood the priesthood. Right? In Deuteronomy, I'm going to say Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 17 to 23. It talks about the firstborn. I don't want my marker to dry out. It talks about the responsibility of the firstborn. And if the firstborn did not take the responsibility, the mother and the father would take him to the elders, right? And have him be judged to see if they could figure out a way to get him to take on the responsibility. If he did not, at that point, he would be stoned, right? That's why he didn't want it. He was like, it's too much responsibility. I'm already doing it wrong. So let's not make it like Esau is being taken advantage of here, right? So anyway, they're going to do this plan, and she's like, I'll figure it out. Put the curse on me. If we're doing anything wrong, let the wrong fall to me. And so they went with their plan and he went and got the food, and she made the food. And Rebecca took Esau's clothes and put them on her son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave, this is such an elaborate plan. We could have just sat down and said, you know what? Esau is not fulfilling his birthright, Isaac. I think it should go to the other son. But that's not how they work. So she put the skins on the goat, right? She put the skins on the boy, or the man. And she gave the savory meat and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son, Jacob. And he came to his father and said, my father, he said, here am I. And he says, who are you, my son? And Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done according as you bid me. Arise, I pray you, sit and eat of the venison, and that your soul may bless me. Now Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have gotten this food so quickly? And he says, God brought it to me. He should have knew right there.
Right.
Right? Esau is not calling on the name of God. And
He probably knew that went along.
Right. And Isaac said to Jacob, come near, I pray you, that I may fill you. You know, this whole family is walking in mistrust. I'm joking. That was a joke. Isaac said to Jacob, come near, I pray you, that I may fill you, my son, whether you be my son or not. And Jacob went near to him, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Now, and he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And he said, are you my very son Esau? And he said, I am. And he said, bring me the food, so my soul may bless you. Now, he goes on, he eats the food, he gives him the blessing, and he says, come near and kiss me. He smells him too, right, to see if it's really his son. Therefore, and he starts to bless him, right? Now, the blessing is pretty much the same blessing he gave to Esau. It's just in reverse, okay? Now, he says, therefore God give you the dew of the heaven, right? We're not talking about the final blessing. We're talking about the firstborn blessing, right? Which means you're going to be the leader of the household. So you are the one that's going to have the spiritual connection first, right? Then he says the fatness of the earth. So you're going to be able to be prosperous on earth, right? And then he says plenty of corn and wine. I don't know what that means yet. Grapes. So he's giving him the blessing of being the leader of the household, right? And he said, let people serve you and the nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone that curses you, and blessed be he that blesses you. So when it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing, Jacob went away from the presence of Isaac, his father. And Esau came in because he had been hunter, and he got the food. And I'm trying to skip down to 32. And Isaac said, he shows up and he says, who are you? And he says, I'm your firstborn. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly. Now this man is about to die, right? From our perspective in the past. But he's able to get so much energy down. He's trembling and he's shaking with anger, right? But he's like, I've already given the blessing, right? And so Esau heard the words. And it's kind of like when you think about when Jesus comes, right? And people will be like, Lord, Lord, I was with you. And he's like, I don't know your name, right? This is kind of what this is trying to show us. That you can think you know or be doing the right thing, but God recognizes the heart of your choices, right?
All right.
And you may not get in the kingdom if you continue to make the wrong choices, which is why I said this one, to me, felt like choices. Okay, now, and he said, your brother came with subtlety and has taken away your blessing, which is why we're always thinking he was a deceiver. And he said, is he not rightly named Jacob? 2 times he supplanted me. He took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. But you gave your birthright, right, Elder?
You gave it away.
You gave it away.
Well, he's still not taking responsibility.
Exactly. And he said, Father, didn't you reserve a blessing for me too? And Isaac, this is the weeping and gnashing of teeth, right? And Isaac answered and said to him, behold, I made him your Lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him, and what shall I do now to you, my son? And Esau said, he's begging him now, have you but one blessing, my father? You can't come up with nothing. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept, right? So Isaac, his father, answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, right? See, that was the second part of Jacob's blessing.
Right.
But it's the first part of his, and then you'll make the spiritual connection. So it's there in reverse. It's the same blessing, but it's in reverse. All right. And by the sword, this is where it differs. And by your sword shall you live, and shall serve your brother, and it shall come to pass when you shall have dominion, that you shall break his yoke from off your neck. Right? And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. So we're thinking this is feeble old man in the bed, and he's not. And then I will slay Jacob. So Rebekah hears about all this from the servant, and also in the book of Jasher. And she tells him to go. And he goes and he stays for a while with Eber, right? And Shem. But then we see he's going to go off and get married to some twins. Did y'all know they were twins? No. Anyway, where we at? We almost done? We at 28. We still have to get down to 9. Okay, and these words of Esau, her elder, and these words of Esau, her elder son, were told. Okay, so the servant told him. So she tells him to go to my family, and tarry with him a few days until your brother's fury, like his wrath is going to turn away in a few days. Until your brother's anger turns away, right? Because she doesn't want to be deprived of both of them, right? Which means he probably could have taken them if he pushed himself, right? That's what I thought. And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of these daughters, such as these, what good will my life be, right? Because they don't honor God. And Isaac called to Jacob. Now, this right here, I'm just going to briefly go over this. If you thought your son was a deceiver or a supplanter, you would not have blessed them to go, right? Which is why I was saying in the beginning, they kind of slipped scriptures in there. He wasn't at odds with Jacob. In no way. This is just the story that they put in here. And I'm not saying it's not correct. I'm just saying there's 2 versions of the story in this one section of the portion. Than meets the eye, right? So he blesses him, right? And he sends him to Laban, right? And he gives him the blessing that God gave him to be fruitful and multiply. And he gave him the blessing of the seed because he did it. He knows he's the heir of promise. So he gave him the same blessing that he got from his father, right? But he's not dead yet, so it's not in effect yet. And Isaac sent away Jacob, I'm at verse 5, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. Laban's name is also known as deceiver, trickster as well. It's not written there, but I'm just letting you know. I'm at 6. When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take a wife, he gets the idea of maybe I can win my title back through the line of Canaan. So he goes and he seeks Ishmael's daughter, right? And these are the ones that I said are going to be the Palestinians and the Romans. We don't have time to get to it, but Herod, the king, was the Roman king that also persecuted the Israelites, because the Edomites are the ones that come out of the line of Esau, and they continue to persecute the Jewish people because they're still walking around thinking that something was taken from them when it wasn't. So they're always persecuting the Jews. But in the book of Obadiah, which is in our Bible, talks about how God is going to be the one to rectify it, right? And it's pretty much saying you reap what you sow, so don't look down on them. You know, that's what the book is talking about. All right, y'all, I'm done. That's the Torah portion. Okay? All right.